Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's Mike Ames Recruitment Show, where, as you can see, we're going to be talking about how to boost your revenues by collaborating with other agencies. And it's not necessarily what you're thinking it is. And today we have an absolutely great guest, don't we, Mike?
We do. I would like to welcome Simon Bliss, who is the chair of the Team Recruitment Network. Welcome, Simon.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really looking forward to this session. It's collaboration is what Team's about.
Well, I like it too, really. Now, we're not. I'm not going to go vast amounts into Team because, as you know, people aren't allowed to sell or promote their products. But I'm a member of Team as a supplier, and one of the things that strikes me about the group, that struck me the first time I went there, I love it, is collaboration. And yes, the very first time I went, someone was saying that they made like a third of their fees through collaborating with other members. It's like, what now? What are you saying now? So straight away, I'm interested. But it's a lot more than that, as Simon will go through in a minute. But I was brought up in the 80s and the 90s, where if you saw your competition drowning, you threw stones at them, right? That's right, because you only won if they lost. And thank God those days are gone now. You know, we're in a different space and a better space now, I think, where if I win and you win, we both win more. Well, why wouldn't I, really? And I think that's what this show is about, how you can collaborate with other people to get more for what you have. And I think Simon was obviously a massive supporter of this. And so I wanted him to come on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Right. So, Simon, I feel like the best way to get started with today's show, and by the way, if anybody has any questions for Simon as we go through, please pop them in the chat and I'll bring them up. But what exactly do you mean by collaboration? Because I'm assuming many people have different definitions. So what's yours?
Well, it's working with other people for the benefit of both. That's the broad church of it. And that might be about money, which is what people think about first, but it's also ideas, it's opportunities, and it's challenges too. You can only talk about those if you're in a trustworthy environment, you feel comfortable about sharing those opportunities or those challenges or problems. But it is about sharing with mutual benefit.
So I think as opposed to throwing stones at people, is that what you're saying?
No stones. No.
Okay. So let's look at the elephant in the room. Let's first talk about collaboration when it comes to like vacancies and fees, because I think this is, like you say, what most people think of when they think of collaboration. So can we delve a little deeper into what this actually means and how you sort it all out?
Yeah. I joined Team as a member back in 2012. And one of the key benefits of joining was I could share jobs with other people. I think we had fill rates of about 40% with my health and safety recruitment business then, and I wanted to fill more jobs. And there was also massive discounts and stuff, but it was the filling more jobs. And we weren't very good at it. And because we were in that weird world of health and safety recruitment, not many other people could help us because we were the only supplier in there. But people came to us with health and safety jobs. And over the 8 years I was a member, and my company's still members of Team now. I've sold it. We paid for our membership several times over when people said, "Oh, we've got a health and safety job we can't fill." But some of our people build their business on that price collaboration, and I'm going to name drop Anthony McCormack, who's a bit of a legend within Team. He joined Team 7 years ago as a solo recruiter. He'd been with Hayes for many years in the UK and Canada. Last year, he became the go-to guy if you couldn't fill a job. He billed £100,000 to his other team members from finding their candidates in a candidate short market, and it's been his primary driver now for revenue as that solo recruiter. He's got his own clients, but that was a sort of game changer for some people, realizing, hang on a minute, I'm a solo recruiter. I can work. My clients can be the other members. And
so just on this then, so a couple of questions that spring to my mind. The first one is, well, how do you split the fees? Now there's so many, oh crikey, so many ways to do that. But broadly speaking, what seems to be a popular split of the fee when you do that?
We advise people to start at right down the middle, 50-50. If you've got a job, you can't fill it, you've got to, someone else find you a candidate to match that. Let's split that down the line. Now, in some instances, there's a bit of flex. The person with the job, and I had a few people come to me when I was a health and safety recruiter, they came to me and said, we've got this job, we can't fill it, we got 12.5%, we're a local generalist, we support this client with this. And I'd say, the fee's too low. Let me talk to your client with you, and we'll explain to them the reasons why they're going to need to pay more for that. And we did that on several occasions. So the fee moved to 20% instead of 12.5%. And we as the sourcing part of that process, because we had the candidates, we took 60% on that, with agreement, obviously, with the other member. The other member was really happy because instead of getting 6.5%, my maths is terrible, they got 40% of 20. So that was that the end money was much better. So most people split 50-50.
Okay, and the next question.
But we allow them to have some flex.
They do what they need to do. The next question, because obviously, and you understand what I'm about to say now. I don't want this to become the team show. If a person isn't a member of team and they wanted to do this, you're suggesting then that they should really begin to seek out people that would be happy to split a fee, either because they've got the vacancies or because they've got the candidates. It's
the one thing that my previous owner, Simon Garber, and his management team did over 20 plus years is they did build an umbrella of trust within team that gives you the protection that no one's going to nick your clients or candidates. In 2 years, 3 months, I've been the owner. I've painfully had to dispel two members who didn't fulfill that trust. They tried to poach and spotted a job on the team exchange system. Oh, that's my client as well. And we had to part company with those. They were relatively new members, so they hadn't sort of got it. But they'd stepped so far outside the circle of trust, it was too much for a slap on the wrist. So we had to part company. But so it's difficult to do if you haven't got that umbrella of trust. But I would encourage people, to have conversations with not necessarily a direct competitor, which is scary, but you could talk to other recruiters in your space who you admire, and you can see from their brand and that they've got integrity and their reputation, and that's a good start base, it doesn't, and I think we're going to come on to it. It doesn't always have to be about money and jobs.
No.
Yeah.
No. In fact, I know Kirsty wants to dive in. I can see her itching to move on, but I would say this: I think sharing deals and making money is great.
Yeah.
But actually, the benefit to your business is very short term. It's like the here and now. I think the longer term, and in my opinion, much bigger benefits that you can get through collaboration happen to be not sharing fees, weirdly. So I know we're going to move on to that sort of stuff now, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so. I think the sharing a network, I feel like, is almost the next step down from vacancies and fees, because you can sort of link it back to those two things. But I feel like it's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? Sharing your network is still hugely powerful.
Yeah. The one of the big things we notice within team on our team hub, which is a bit like LinkedIn for team, and also our WhatsApp groups, which are divisional and regional groups, is people are searching for advice. Which CRM should I use? I'm using this one. I'm thinking I'm moving into this space, and the positive feedback and the constructive feedback you get from that network is huge. And where do you go with that? If you don't have a network, you can bounce that too. So the advice, and we're lucky enough to have 100 suppliers, of which Flair are one, within team, and then so people are looking, which marketing consultants help with your brand, which coach can help you grow and scale your business, etc., etc. And there's loads of sharing of that. That advice and knowledge share is, as we know, is
I was out for dinner last night, Burns night. So there I'm kind of tucking into the old haggis and things. And I was sitting next to someone, and we were talking about what you've done in your career. And this guy's even older than me, if such a thing is possible. He's
Don't think that's
in his late 70s. And he said, oh, well, when I ended, the biggest thing I got was my network, because I was in business for 50 years and I knew everybody really. And I said, do you know what? Thinking about it, I feel the same. I've collected people as I go. I like to think that I give more than I ask in return. And so there you attract people if you do that. And if anybody wants to know, like you say, does anybody want a CRM system? Does anybody want to know a good accountant or whatever? Chances are I'm going to know somebody, but I'm only one person. In a group of people, I think you get a different opinions of the same subject, and you get, what do they say? Nobody is as clever as everybody in the room. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of truth in that when it comes to networks. You know, you can get a lot from it, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people come to me for advice, and I haven't got it, but being within team, I know someone who can give it. That you know, we're facilitators.
Dan Kennedy said that the granddaddy of all coaches, really great guy, passed away now, but he said all the money you want is in the pockets of the people you know and the pockets of the people they know. And I don't think that's just money. Everything that you want is known by the people you know or known by the people they know. And I think any opportunity to build that network and access it has got to be worthwhile.
Yeah, I think so. I think as well, people do this in their personal lives. You know, like if you need a plumber, you'll ask your friends for a plumber or something like this. So it's a very similar thing in your work. But we have had a couple of questions and comments that I want to bring up. So Martin said that he tries to do a huge amount of collaboration with businesses operating in their specialisms, but where they can mutually benefit off each other's network. And it's been phenomenal for driving word of mouth and inbound leads for us. So there's somebody else who's basically saying the same thing as you. And then we've got a question from Brian. Brian has asked, does the managing agency explain to their client that they're outsourcing the recruitment to another agency, or is this something that you think your client doesn't need to know?
I think it depends on you and your client. You could, outsourcing to a third party, we try and people like, they use Anthony McCormack as some of our members as part of the company. He's the sourcing partner, if you like. So some people are really upfront about that, especially if it's a generalist that does blue collar or temp stuff and suddenly they get a finance director role. They might say, well, this is not really our space, but here's the good news. We're part of the team network. We have access to 50 accountancy and finance companies. We can work with our partners to find the right people for you. So it really depends on the relationship you have with your client. You shouldn't be scared about it. And the more confident you become, the more open our members become. So it's up to you, and it depends on the relationship you have with your client. But you don't have to. There's complete confidentiality with the sourcing member. They cannot contact the client without your permission and only by invitation for you. So they will feed the candidates into you to present to the client. So it doesn't have to. Yeah, it's your choice. And the more you get to know your other colleagues within the network, it makes it more easier to be open.
I put a spin on that just slightly as well, because my instinct would be to share that with the client.
Yeah.
Right, because it's the way it is really. Look, it's not what we do, but years ago, a very quick story, one of our competitors introduced us to one of their clients. We didn't know they'd introduced us, but they wanted a particular skill that they weren't particularly strong in. And they said, oh, you need to speak to, in those days, systems resources, where I worked. And we were amazed. This client had rung us up. We were dead thrilled. And we thought this was the beginning of a wonderful relationship. But we just placed that one person. And then they went back to the original supplier. They'd simply strengthened their relationship. Now, okay, that's not the same thing. They're not collaborating and sharing. But I think to come forward and say, do you know what? That's not really my space, or the market's really vicious in that at the moment. So I'm going to engage with some of my associates and my partners to be able to widen the net. I don't think the client's going to mind about that at all.
No, particularly if they get the person that they want, which I think is going to be the result from that. So that's fantastic. Thank you. Any more questions? Keep them coming. So the next section I really want to go on to, because I think it's one of those things that's really powerful and underrated when it comes to collaboration, is ideas. Because particularly if you're like a solopreneur or somebody who's more individual, it can be very lonely. You get that commercial loneliness, and so having somebody that you trust and can collaborate with on ideas and problem solving is I think something really helpful.
Yeah. Can I give you 2 examples of where that I think has dynamically worked for a couple of our members? Francis Kelly is one of our members, been with us for many years. He runs a generalist recruitment business in Kingston upon Thames, and it's a good business. It's very local, and it's pretty successful. It's not the sexiest space to be in as in recruitment in local generalist now, but he had something burning inside of him that his mother and father were deaf. And if you've seen Coda, the amazing film about deaf parents, then you should certainly see that and you get the story. And he was really proud of how his father, completely deaf and without a CV, went for a job at the All England Tennis Club many years ago, went for an interview. You can imagine what that would have been like, him being deaf, with people that hadn't dealt with deaf people before. They gave him the job and he stayed there for 40 years.
Oh,
and
wow.
it was a wonderful, and his dad had passed away, and Francis had been eating away at him, and he had an idea for developing a recruitment business that could support people with some disabilities or from minority groups. And in collaboration with another, in fact, it was a supplier, one of the team suppliers, Miles Lloyd, they came up with Level Equals, which is a recruitment business now that is supporting, and a bit like the All England Club, that's supporting sports organisations really build diversity and inclusion in their management and workforce space. And he's had amazing success with some Premiership clubs, and no surprise, the All England Tennis Club and England Cricket and RFU Rugby, and the business is taking off. And in 5 years, that business will be 5 times bigger than his little generalist business would have ever been.
I think that's a great story and a great cause, actually. But I'll come to the other end of the spectrum, because that's like a big story. I came to one of the team groups, and we were in a group just talking about a subject that this group wanted to discuss. And someone came up with an idea, and I can share what it was because it's common. Lots of people do it, but a lot of people in the group hadn't heard about it. They were basically just selling recruitment as a service. Now, I know it's been around for some time, right? Lots of different guises. But the way that she described, and I'm not going to share what she described, but the way she described what she was doing, I was sitting there and I could see the light bulbs coming on in the group. There was about 12 people in the group. And it's like, I didn't think of that. And I bet you, I've not followed it up with them, but I bet you 2 or 3 of those at least made money from that 3-minute conversation. I bet you they did, because I'm thinking I'm not even in recruitment anymore. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. I'd like to do that. Yeah. So I think it's not just about, like we said earlier, the direct money and stuff. These are concepts or ideas or thoughts that just make you think, aha, can do that.
Light bulb moment.
Yeah, light bulb moment, a ka-ching moment. So I'm big on the ideas thing. I'm an ideas man, though, aren't I, Kirst?
You are indeed. So, I mean, Kate, who I know is a member of team, said that she recently, from having a chat with another team member, she's come up with a new business idea that she wouldn't have before. Collaboration is everything. And I think it is one of those things that when you get in the mind space to be open to it, it definitely comes to you, I feel like. We have had another follow-up question to the previous question that I want to come up about collaboration if you're sharing it with an agency. And Flora said, what after introducing the outsourcing agency, if you are honest with your client, the client then goes and works directly with them instead of you in the middle? What would you do then?
Well, we have a tracking thing on our team exchange. It was one of the things I wanted to beef up was we searched the world for the right tech to manage and connect our 500 so far members, and it tracks the system. If the client goes with you for a number of years, whatever jobs you fill from introduction to that client, the person that introduced the agency gets 50% of the fee, and you have to comply with that. Otherwise, there I go again with my big boots. I kick you out of team. So
I think,
you might win one client, but you'll lose the opportunity for many more.
Even if you're not in team, though, I think if your relationship with a client is so precarious that another supplier comes in and can steal business off you, I think, without being critical at all, I think there is some work to be done there, perhaps with that relationship. The other part of that is don't let that other agency anywhere near your clients. I mean, they're supplying somebody to you, and you're then supplying it to the end client. You can share that you're doing that, but you don't have to introduce that agency. And I probably wouldn't actually do that. One
of our members, who's just a two-man band, used to fill 10 jobs a year with a multinational manufacturing company in defence, and they were good at filling those 10 jobs. They filled them all, but the client had about 90 other jobs a year that they really had poor fill rates on. So in the end, those two guys with the two-man business said, well, I think we can help with some of those other jobs. They're not really our space. And they said, how can you do that? And they said, well, we collaborate with these other 500 companies. And they got given another, we'll try you out with our 30 most difficult ones. They filled 28 of them within 2 months. And they outsourced them to team. And they're upfront about that. And so they became an RPO, if you like, a managed service provider for that client, and won all of that business underneath. This is
making me think, though, because not only does there have to be an element of trust to make this work, regardless of whether you're in a group like team or whether you're not, right? There has to be an element of trust, else you really shouldn't do it. But there also has to be a real element of openness, doesn't there? You have to, like Kate was saying a few seconds ago, obviously someone said something to her and she thought, oh, that's a great idea. When I was there and they said this thing, I'm thinking, I'll have some of that. Whatever the collaboration, you have to give as much as you take, else it doesn't kind of work, does it really?
It's not a collaboration then, is it? If you don't, if it's not
I think you said at the beginning, it has to be mutual. There has to be mutual benefit.
Okay, so I think we're just going to go on to, we've got time for one more kind of benefit of collaboration, and I really enjoy this one, which is successes and challenges, because it's sort of two sides of the same coin. Because I think a lot of people probably be okay sharing successes, but challenges might be uncomfortable for some people.
Yeah, that's when you're really brave and you feel comfortable in that environment. Successes, I think, is a good one, and I'm doing some, I shared with you, I do some recorded fireside chats with some of our team members who are doing things differently, have a USP, or have a really interesting story to tell. And I was with Charlotte Sykes and Ruth Forster, who were two ladies who run recruitment businesses, one in Northampton, one in the East Midlands. They met at a team, a networking event that Mike's been to as well. And they started to talk about coaching and supporting their candidates, that pool of people where you don't get your money from, but they create the money for you. And Charlotte was really passionate about giving some of those candidates real support in nurturing them in their career, not just their next job. And then an opportunity came up, and Ruth was really listening into that. And she contacted Charlotte and said, can I come and sit in with some of your coaching sessions you do with clients on? And anyway, the girls have taken this forward and formed a business now, which is a coaching business called Be Career Confident. And it's for businesses, for their internal teams, and it's also for individual candidates. And it's created a revenue stream for both of them, but it's also given them a USP and a real differentiator when they go and talk to potential new clients or existing clients about the service they offer, which is obviously somewhat transactional recruitment. Can you help fill these jobs? But they delve deeper into what are you doing to nurture and develop your teams? How can we, and we support and candidates migrate with transferable skills from one sector to another. And that was a tremendous story of success, which came out of a trusted environment and someone suggesting an idea that came forward.
If someone's been successful in something, it perhaps means you could be successful in the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, again, it's sharing, isn't it? If you don't share, you've got to be generous with your ideas and your thoughts and successes. Same goes for challenges. You know, it's an old adage, but a problem halved is a problem shared. A problem divided by 500 is a very small problem indeed. So I think this ability, even if, again, if you're not in a group, if you can just have someone who's in your industry who gets what it's like to be you. So not one of your mates who does something else, or your mom or something. You actually go for a beer or a coffee and say, I just got to share this with you, and they get it. And you know that they get it because they've got that understanding. I think that level of collaboration, which again is something that we really didn't do in the 90s when I was there. We used to go drinking with the competition. I have to say that in a big way sometimes. Some of them were very great fun, but what we didn't do was share much. People all go, oh, no. And that's a shame. I think
people don't share challenges or problems because it's a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
Mustn't show that in recruitment. But I've been in party too and thrown my own problems and challenges into a pool when I was a team member. And as some of you know, I got into recruitment at the tender age of 54, having never been in recruitment and having bought a recruitment company that wasn't making any money. That was
3 years ago. 3 years ago. Amazing.
In 2010. So when I joined team, I told my story, and when people stopped laughing about this idiot that hadn't been in recruitment and bought a recruitment company that was losing money, they sort of gathered round and said, come and see what we do. And that was a wonderful, 10 of the problems I had, half of them disappeared by sharing some time and knowledge, by some of my fellow members sharing some time and knowledge with me. And it game changed where we were at Principal People.
I think, actually, Kirsty, I'm not going to say anything next. I know you wanted to wrap up, but when Simon does his one thing, can I have one thing as well?
I'll allow it. I don't normally, but I will allow it today.
Sounds like two things to me.
Yeah, we will come to Simon in a second. So I think from today, I think the biggest thing that I've taken away is collaboration has multiple forms. So yes, you can do it based off vacancies and fees. You can share your network, and by that, suppliers, people who can help you. You can share ideas, you can share problems, but essentially, I think the biggest thing that comes over this is this one for me. There has to be this trustworthy environment, whether you are in an organization like Team or whether you're working with somebody who's currently in your network, a friend, or somebody that you trust. You have to have sort of lines around it, but the benefits that you get from that collaboration will far outweigh any sort of potential drawbacks that you can have. So it's definitely worth taking a risk on. Now, in a second, Simon, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to ask you what, if somebody wants to get started with collaboration, they should do. So I'll do that in a second. But before then, Mike, next week, what are we going to be talking about?
That really, we're going to talk about how to scale a recruitment company from scratch to as big as you like. Actually, this is by popular demand. People are talking to me about this a lot, particularly quite small businesses, but even businesses. I had a call this morning, actually, eight people in it and wanted to scale, can't move forward. So there's a reason that companies don't scale. In fact, there's one of 5 reasons. There's 5 pillars. And if it's not scaling, there's a problem in those pillars. We are going to explore every single one of those pillars. So it's going to be a great show. If you want to scale, tune in.
Yeah, and scale isn't always what people think it is as well. So we'll be covering that. So it's a very exciting show. Now, Simon, imagine somebody's been watching this today and they're thinking, oh, collaboration sounds like a good thing to me. What should I do first? Now, obviously, the first answer is to connect with you on LinkedIn and talk about potentially joining teams. But let's imagine that team isn't an option that they want to go with right now. They're just by themselves. What should somebody do to get started with collaboration?
Well, whatever business you're in, and hopefully it's recruitment, I'd have a look outside and think, who do I respect? Who do I like? Who impresses me with what they're doing in the marketplace? They might be a competitor. They might not be a competitor, but they might be in recruitment in a slightly different field, and that's less scary. I'd reach out to them, especially if they're local, connect, have that face-to-face, because that's when you can build that umbrella of trust face-to-face. When people say, and if you make the first step by sharing something from your side, which might be a problem or a challenge, then that might open things up from the other people to share some of their successes and ideas, the stuff that you admire in them, to come back to you. And that's the building of a relationship.
Fantastic. I
Is
think
it my
that's
turn now? Is it my turn now? Is it my turn
It
now?
is your turn now, but I don't have it written down for you because you just
Very
come up with
quickly.
the top of your
No,
head.
no. It's just building on what Simon said, really. And I'd forgotten about this till he mentioned it. Arrange a site visit. So you go and sit with someone not in the little office where you drink coffee, but in the area where they work, and you do the same for them. Because every time I go on client site, which isn't as many times these days as I'd like, really, I learn something by being in situ. And if you want to learn by observation, from a competitor, not competitor, direct competitor necessarily, but somebody else in the recruitment field, there is nothing finer than a site visit. So it's kind of building on what Simon said, really, but arrange that site visit.
Two very good points to get started there. So fantastic. So first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who's watched today and for everybody who's put comments in. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. I would like to say a huge thank you to Simon. So thank you so much for coming on, Simon, today and adding so much value to everybody.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have you.
This is the Kirsty Ames show, isn't it?
It is my show. Thank you for telling me that. And thank you to you, Mike, for being here.
Well, thank you, Kirsty. Thanks everyone. Thanks. And we'll see you all next week if you want to scale.